You're watching Gearz, brought to you by LNC Truck. Keep 'em on the road.
Hey, welcome to Gearz. You know, a while back, we dug into a project called the Catalog Camaro. And the purpose was to show you the potential that these second-generation Camaros have. So, we started with a well-worn plastic bumper 81 Camaro. Then we pulled off all the old front sheet metal. And replaced it with new aftermarket sheet metal for a 70 through 73 Camaro. And in doing that, we converted it to the much more desirable early 70s split bumper look. Then we unbolted the subframe and rolled the whole front subframe, engine, and transmission out from under the car. In its place, we put in Speedway's new G-Comp subframe and suspension to bring our handling and braking up to date. For an engine, we dropped in a hot K-Tech LS3 crate engine. And for the transmission, we swapped in a T56 Magnum 6-speed so we can bang gears and hang corners with the best of them. Now, so far, the response to this project has been huge. But the one question that keeps coming up is, what are we going to do about the rear? Because unlike the front, most of the sheet metal back here is welded on. So that's going to be a little more challenging. But just like the front, all of the rear sheet metal for the whole 11-year run of Camaro is available in a catalog. So you can literally do whatever you want back here. For example, on this car, we're going to pull off the plastic bumpers like we did on the front, and then we're going to convert it to the round tail lights and the chrome bumper like the early cars had. But we're going to retain the wraparound rear glass and the T-tops that the later cars had. This way, we get the best of both worlds and a very unique car all at the same time. Let's get to it. The first step is to remove everything off the rear of the car. This means the spoiler, the taillights, the bumper all need to come off. Now, if this stuff's in good shape, don't destroy it because it makes great swap meet material. Okay, with the tail end of this thing stripped down, let's take a look at what we got. Now, the good news is, just like the hood, Chevrolet never changed this trunk lid to the whole 11-year run. They also didn't change the shape of the quarter panels. However, what they did change were the ends of the quarter panels, the trunk floor, this rear panel, the valence panel, and of course the tail lights and the bumper. So you're going to need to either replace this stuff or modify it to pull off this conversion. So we're going to need some parts. Let's check out the catalog. Okay, the place we went to was Classic Industries, and the parts you're going to need to pull off this conversion are as follows. First of all, you're going to need both rear quarter panels from a 70 through 73. You're also going to need the cross rail panel. Then you're going to need the tail light panel and the lower valence, and a new bumper and bumper brackets. But that's just the start, because you see all these holes here? Those have to be filled with something. So we also got a billet gas cap, and then these holes here will be filled with license plate lights. This here is where you'll mount the bezel and the key assembly for the trunk latch. Then if you're going to use the original license plate bracket, you'll need that because it flips down. It bolts in this area. Then it's a good idea to go ahead and get a new trunk latch and the bracket, because it is different on the 70 through 73, and a new trunk lock. And Classic Industries has a kit so you can get door locks that will match your trunk lock, which is really cool. Now for lights, you're going to need side marker lights and of course tail lights. And for those, we got these really slick billet tail lights, which are going to really make the back of that thing pop. Then one last thing that I really suggest you get is a master hardware kit, because this has all of the hardware you're going to need to completely restore a Camaro. The reason this is a good idea is because most of this stuff you cannot find on the shelf at the local auto parts store. Now, I know this looks like a lot of stuff, but if you want to pull this off and make it look like a factory deal, you got to use as much original parts as possible. Now, with the quarter panels side by side, you may be wondering why we said you needed to get the whole quarter panel instead of just the end, because that's all we're going to use. We're not converting to the smaller glass. We don't have any rust here. We're not going to use all this. Well, the reason is there is no patch panel available that has all this tail end with all these compound curves, and that fits the taillight panel. The only way to get that is to get the complete quarter panel and cut it off. But the good news is you can take the rest of it and sell it to your buddy that has a rusty Camaro that has rust around the wheel wells. You might even put some money in your pocket.
Restoring a vehicle. Done right, it can be one of the most rewarding things you can ever undertake. Done wrong, it can turn your life upside down. Shake the money out of your pockets and squeeze the sanity from your brain. Stacey David's Restoration Series is here to help you do it right, so you can keep your money and your sanity and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So grab a wrench and let's get cranking. Stacey David's Restoration Series, now streaming exclusively on Amazon Prime.
Hey, welcome back to Gearz. Well, we are in the process of doing a butt lift on the back of this 81 Camaro to give it the look of the early 70s Camaro, which was much more desirable. Now, so far, we have everything stripped off the back of the car. Now it's a matter of cutting off the back of our new quarter panels and trimming off the fat so they can be grafted into the back of those original fenders. Freedom! Freedom! Okay, at this point, it's all about trimming down the new sheet metal to get it to blend in with the original quarter panel. Now, of course, you can just cut off the whole back of the quarter panel and remove this panel and just replace everything, but man, that's a lot of work that you don't have to do. Remember, all of the quarter panels on Camaros were the same down the line where they meet the trunk, because remember, they never changed the trunk lid. Where the change happened was about 3 inches in. On the later model ones, they start to angle, then they go down into this mess and on down. So what we're going to do is that we're going to make a cut here and just come in like that. And as you can see, we're going to come right down the side, filling in that. Then we're going to cut out an area for the marker light because we want to keep that. And then we're just going to continue on down. So let's get trimming. Heck. A nice trick is to use a flanging tool on some of the areas of the original panel to give you a temporary shelf for the panel to sit on as you dial in the position. Now, once you have it fitting perfectly, you can come in here and make your final cut and get rid of that flange, clamp the piece in place with some sheet metal clamps, and you're ready to butt weld this thing in. But we're not going to weld it in yet because we have some other things we need to fit first. But as you can see, look how this is fitting. All the body lines are lining up perfectly, and you're going to have one single weld seam with most of it hidden underneath the spoiler. All right, once you have your quarter extensions mocked in place, you are ready to fit your tail light panel and your lower valence. Now, the good news is you will be able to retain this rear panel. However, you're going to have to modify it quite a bit. First of all, you're going to need to cut it here, and then cut down this line right there, retaining the weather stripping groove so you have a place to locate the new panel. Then you slice it right here, remove this piece. Then you're going to have to cut down this lower valence panel and get rid of that, so the new valence will go up underneath and mount correctly to the quarter panels. Then you're going to have to cut out some big holes here so you have access to the taillights from the inside. Now that might seem like a lot, but doing it this way means you don't have to change the trunk floor or the fuel tank to the earlier version. You're also going to need to cut out the center of the panel and the trunk latch to give you clearance for the recessed license plate area that's stamped into the earlier panel. And when the smoke clears, this is what the modified panel is going to look like. From here on out, it's just a matter of trimming and fitting and trimming and fitting and trimming and fitting the panels until you got them dialed in. There we go. That's it. Now, once you have everything fitting right, you're ready to start welding it all in. And unfortunately, we are out of time on this project today. So we're going to pick it up on another episode, show you how to finish all this out. But in the meantime, take a look at this, man. You can see how nicely this is all fitting together. Definitely an improvement over that old disco era rear end.
If you've got a cool project and would like to show millions of other gearheads what you're working on, you need to join Gearz Nation. This is a free, interactive online community of auto enthusiasts that will allow you to learn from, share with, and encourage others, and at the same time, show off your project. There are also premium memberships available for access to special merchandise and the entire Gearz catalog. If you're into mechanical things, you're welcome on Gearz Nation. And who knows, you might even see your project on TV. Tool Tech, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
You know, when it comes to metal work like we did on this Camaro today, I know a lot of you guys might be thinking, man, I would love to do something like this, but I just don't have the tools and equipment to pull it off. Well, you might be surprised just how simple the tools are that make this happen. So we're going to walk you through some of the cutting tools you're going to need to pull off this kind of surgery. First is the Sawzall, because it's big and aggressive and can cut through just about anything. Next is the air saw, because it's very precise and can get into small areas and make tight turns with ease. A cutoff wheel is important because it can get into places and cut in ways that are different than a saw. And it also doubles as a grinder, which is imperative for finishing your edges and prepping metal for welding. Metal snips may seem low-tech, but sometimes these are the best way to do your final trimming and edging. And you should always have an assortment of files for finishing edges, opening holes, and general fine shaping. Now, panel clamps Vice grips and body clamps are extremely important for holding panels in place for fitment and welding. And finally, a spot weld cutter is the best way to cut spot welds and remove old panels and not destroy the base metal underneath. See, there's nothing here that's really exotic and nothing here that's really expensive. All of this is stuff that anybody could easily put in their toolbox. And these tools will open up a whole new world of possibilities for you.
Now, quick tip. Brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs. Born to burn.
When you're working on a vehicle and you have the opportunity to get inside of a body panel, like a quarter panel or a rocker or inside of a door, make sure that you take some time to clean it out thoroughly, because you'll not only find some very unique stuff, but it's also a place where moisture and dirt can congregate, making it a perfect breeding ground for rust. So, taking the time to clean everything out properly and put on a coat of rust preventative paint will go a long way to preserving your vehicle's precious sheet metal. You know, one of the first true freedoms you experience as a kid is that first bicycle. Man, it becomes your transportation to the world, or at least the local neighborhood. And in my neighborhood, man, we all had bikes. And we'd stick playing cards in the spokes, and we'd suck on black licorice, make it look like we were big biker dudes. And it was magic. But a bike wasn't just about transportation. No, it became an extension of your personality. And there were all kinds of bikes out there. There were 10 speeds, there were mountain bikes, there were Stingrays, there were BMX bikes, and they all had their strengths and weaknesses. And that's where the idea for the story of the purple bicycle came from. Because just like a bike might wish it had the talents or skills of another bike, so do we sometimes overlook our God-given talents and wish we had somebody else's talents, skills, color, abilities because they seem to be better than ours. It's a simple story. It's a simple lesson, but something we all need to be reminded of from time to time.
And now, Seal Tech, brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, helping restore the car of your dreams.
When it comes to rubber weather stripping, you can be assured of one thing. Eventually, it will get old and you'll have to replace it. Oh yeah, you can take some RTV silicone and goo it into these cracks like this, and that may stop the leaks for a while, but that's just temporary and it looks terrible. Now, the sad fact is, once rubber gets hard and starts to crack like this, there is no way to revitalize it and make it soft and pliable again, no matter what you may have read on the internet. When it gets like this, you got to replace it. Now, when you go to pull out glass like this, don't just stick a screwdriver in here and start prying. You're just going to break the glass. This rubber is really hard, so it needs to be cut out. So what you want to do is take a razor knife and cut right down the center of the weather stripping. You're basically lining up with the edge of the glass. You cut right down the center. This will release the glass from the pinch weld and allow you to pop the glass out without excessive prying. Now, when you go to store your old glass, it's a good idea to pick up some of this cheap plastic edging. You can pick it up at a local auto parts store, and then just stick it around the edge of the glass. This will keep you from chipping the edges and potentially breaking the glass when it's in storage. And then finally, one last tip. When you go to install your weather stripping, make sure that you paid attention to the direction it went when you took it off, because it is possible to get this stuff on backwards, and that never works good.
And now, Parts Bin.
Since we're on the subject of tools today, the one tool that everybody agrees they need in their shop is the floor jack, because it will not only allow you to jack things up in the air, but also allows you to move things around once you have them jacked up. And that's where most standard floor jacks fail, because if you look at the way they're designed, they're pretty thin here in the frame and up here into the lifting apparatus. What happens when you get it up in the air, you start moving the vehicle around, it'll twist on you, it'll bend the lifting arm, and make the jack useless because it'll never lift straight again. Well, Cornwell decided to do something about that, and they came out with the heavyweight jack. Now, you can see this thing is huge compared to a standard jack. It'll lift 3.5 tons, and it's still low profile, so it'll go underneath the lowest vehicles. But the big difference is in the shape of the frame. Look how big and beefy this thing is, and the lifting arm. You're not gonna twist this, you're not gonna bend it, you're not gonna tip it over. You can abuse this thing all you want. About the only thing you don't want to do with this is to be picking it up and throwing it in your truck all the time because it is heavy. But if you need a heavyweight jack, the only place you're going to get something like this is Cornwell.
And now, what are you working on? Brought to you by Painless Performance Products. American made, American proud.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Jeremy Cash from Shreveport, Louisiana. And his project is a 66 Chevy C30 custom camper pickup. Now, he says in his own words that this thing has been passed around his family like a set of hooker headers, man. Everybody's had this truck. He said that his uncles raced it, his dad, his stepdad, his mom. Jeremy himself even spent time in this thing in high school, but then he said he lost track of it in '93. Now, fast forward some years, Jeremy's own son, 8 years old, wants a project. Jeremy immediately thinks of the truck. The only problem is finding it. Well, he found it. It was still owned by extended family. They found it under 20 years of junk in a field, and so they pulled it home and started working on it. Now, Jeremy said he showed his son how to change the tires, the door glass, the window seals, and for an engine, they tossed the old 305 and started modifying a 5.3 from an 04 Avalanche so they could drop it in the truck. Now, obviously, the project has a long way to go, but he says that his boys and even his wife have been part of this project from day one, and that makes this one of the coolest projects. It's always neat to have your family involved. So, Jeremy, to recognize such a cool project, we hooked up with our buddies at Painless. We're going to give you a gift card so you can afford to wire that thing properly. Also, we're going to give you one of our new Gearz t-shirts because you're obviously a real gearhead. Then we're going to give you one of our project planning books so you can keep track of everything you've done on that truck so you can service it and take care of it correctly. For your boys, we're going to give them one of our children's books so they can laugh at that. And to keep your wife happy, we're going to give you a gift card from LMC Truck because they have a lot of stuff in there for that 66 Chevy. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Obviously, I have a Camaro to work on. Jeremy's got his Chevy to work on. And I bet you have a family member somewhere that's got an old car or truck just waiting for you to go get it and start working on it. We'll get going. What are you waiting for? We'll see you next time.